If you have been on X, formerly known as Twitter today, you know that it is on fire. Folks have been tweeting all day about this disastrous, and I do mean disastrous, interview that Donald Trump gave to 3 Black female journalists in Chicago at the National Association of Black Journalists. He was invited to participate in this interview, and there was swift backlash from many of the members of NABJ, as well as others in the Black community, saying, why are you inviting this guy and normalizing him when he has spent his entire career attacking Black people, where he has made the most racist and sexist statements imaginable by someone looking to be president? Why give him a platform? Why give him more attention? Well, the president of the NABJ says we're doing it because that's our tradition, that we open our doors as journalists to anyone who's at the top of the ticket. They said we've had George Bush, we've had Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, and we've invited Kamala Harris, who is going to either appear in person in September or give an online interview. She was unavailable for today. Well, on this show yesterday, I had veteran journalist, Emmy Award-winning anchor Sharon Reed on to talk about that decision by the NABJ to go forward with Trump and the interview. And Sharon made some pretty astute predictions about how that interview was likely to go and what the fallout would be. So I invited her back to not only talk about what her predictions were pre-interview, but to get her impressions on the 34-minute interview. We are also, in addition to that analysis, brilliant analysis that I'm anticipating from Sharon Reed, we're going to play you what we believe to be some of the most salient clips from that interview. Some of the things said, not only by Donald Trump, but also by one of the journalists, one of the Fox anchors. I think it's going to shock you. It shocked me. I was a little surprised that this particular anchor was on that stage, and then how she answered those questions once, how she posed, I should say, the questions that she posed to Donald Trump. So when we come forward, we've got clips from this disastrous interview, and we have analysis from Emmy Award-winning journalist Sharon Reed. Don't touch that dial. You're going to want to hear this interview. It's going to have you, I think, as shocked as I am about some of the things that Donald Trump had to say. Today, on a stage in a convention hall in Chicago at the National Association of Black Journalists Convention, a room full of Black journalists, Donald Trump questioned the racial identity of Kamala Harris, who is Black and South Asian. Now, during a tense appearance at this convention, he asked, is she Indian or is she Black? He falsely claimed that VP Harris, who has long identified as Black and attended a historically Black university, used to identify as Indian, and then, quote, according to Trump, all of a sudden she made a turn and she became a Black person, quote. The White House press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, called Trump's comments repulsive and insulting. She added, no one has any right to tell someone who they are. Let's take a look and listen at some of this jaw-dropping interview of Donald Trump conducted by 3 Black journalists at the NABJ convention in Chicago.
Mr. President, we so appreciate you giving us an hour of your time. I want to start by addressing the elephant in the room, sir. A lot of people did not think it was appropriate for you to be here today. You have pushed false claims about some of your rivals, from Nikki Haley to former President Barack Obama, saying that they were not born in the United States, which is not true. You have told 4 congresswomen of color who were American citizens to go back to where they came from. You have used words like animal and rabid to describe Black district attorneys. You've attacked Black journalists, calling them a loser, saying the questions that they ask are, quote, stupid and racist. You've had dinner with a white supremacist at your Mar-a-Lago resort. So my question, sir, now that you are asking Black supporters to vote for you, why should Black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question so in such a horrible manner. First question. You don't even say, hello, how are you? Are you with ABC? Because I think they're a fake news network, a terrible network. And I think it's disgraceful that I came here in good spirit. I love the black population of this country. I've done so much for the black population of this country, including employment, including opportunity zones with Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, which is one of the greatest programs ever for black workers and black entrepreneurs. I've done so much.
Wow. Sharon Reed is joining me now. We're going to play throughout this hour, Sharon, clips from that interview. But just tell me first your initial impression to Donald Trump on that stage today.
He showed us who he is. So, I don't know why he was offered another chance for this installment. He was unbothered. He was not nervous at all. Did you notice that? He had no... Kamala Harris told us, last night, the night before, they're all bleeding together. Like they say it to my face. And that's what he did. He came and he gave black journalists to their face what he's been saying behind their backs, or I guess globally. He's been saying the quiet part out loud for some time, Areva, but it was disgusting. It was absolutely disgusting what I saw on that stage. I'll give Rachel Scott some credit. She was prepared and attempted to push back, but it's like I said to you last night, you can't do that with a pathological liar. He has something diagnosable. I'm not allowed to say because I don't have that PhD, but he has something diagnosable. So it's like trying to teach a 2-year-old calculus. They're not trying to hear that, okay? Unbothered, I'm disgusted that we invited him into our home. This is not, this public thing. This is that safe space. NABJ, he said journalism's a lie, everything's fake news, black people are DEI, and he continued the same things. He said it on the stage in front of you today. So, I don't know what we expected.
Well, you predicted this yesterday when you were on. You knew this was coming, so no surprises. I think what shocked me the most, and I'm not surprised, but I was annoyed by it. Rachel did the best job Rachel could do, but he steamrolled over Rachel and the other journalist that was on the stage. Harris Faulkner, who's from Fox, who he loves, he pitted her really against the other two. He lifted her up. He praised her. He responded to her questions in a very different way. And they said that they had teamed up with a fact-checking agency and that he was being fact-checked. I haven't had a chance to go look at that site online to see, but just like the CNN anchors when they did the debate with Biden and Trump, there were some efforts to try. You can't fact check the guy because he, like, every other word is a lie. You would literally take up the entire interview time fact checking him, but he was allowed to just steamroll over the journalist, and I guess short of just talking over him and being belligerent, he's not controllable. He's unhinged.
He's unhinged. He's lacking an emotional quotient. We can't score him. There's no score. He doesn't have any kind of emotional maturity, but you have to get creative. And quite frankly, yes, again, Rachel, kudos to her. I'm not going to act like this was, award winning, because you don't get that with this kind of subject. But with respect to Harris Faulkner, we're not here to tear anyone down, but he may have done the things you said, and I agree with you, but she made it a little bit easy to do that as well, asking little softball questions like, why did you pick JD? I mean, come on, really?
Okay, that's the question that got you. The one that got me, Sharon, with Harris Faulkner is the setup on inflation, that preamble that she read about how difficult it is to buy groceries, and poor single moms can't afford their rent. And she just went on and on and on. And again, no fact checking on her statements because inflation is coming down, food prices are coming down, gas is coming down. We have one of the strongest economies ever. But yet that was a typical Fox News question and setup for him by Harris. So I have to wonder again, was the format, I'm reading that Trump demanded that Harris Faulkner be on that stage.
Well, that's the first mistake. I've had people do that to me before. One law enforcement analyst who didn't like that I questioned him about a naked Marine who was shot dead in the streets of Metro Atlanta. I didn't think that was okay, that the investigation stalled and stalled. And then in the end, ticky-tack stuff, nothing happened. And he was booked. And as soon as he realized he was booked, where I sit in the chair, he said, I won't do it. I'll only do it with so-and-so. And I said, well, that's not what we're doing here. Okay. You don't get to make the rules. You get to have some fairness and get to answer the questions. That's why I said they should have been creative. If you're going to invite this kind of being into your midst, then you have to have some rules. How about have somebody who is a shadow Trump on the stage? You don't want to answer the question, let him go ahead. And then I would go to the shadow Trump and say, no, what's the real answer? And they can go to the record. They can look up Project 2025 and tell us what he really said and what he really thinks.
Sharon, he wouldn't come. And as you just said,
Then
you don't get to dictate the rules, but Donald Trump dictates the rules. And just like he's now saying he's not going to debate Harris on September 10th because it's on ABC, he's not going any place where he can't control it. So that's again my angst with NABJ, because the minute you knew Harris Faulkner is not going to be anything other than Harris Faulkner. She is a conservative journalist on a station that says they're not even a news station, they're entertainment. That's what they said in a lawsuit.
You're kinder. You're kinder than I am. She's not a journalist. She works for a propaganda machine. That is what they are. That's indeed what they are. And she has upheld that. And
she wasn't on occasion. And NABJ knew that. They knew who she was, what she was going to do, and she did exactly what we expected her to do. Let's play another clip. I want to listen to this. I want you to get your reaction. I want to get your reaction to the Black Jobs clip.
I love the Black population of this country. I've done so much for the Black population of this country, including employment, including opportunity zones with Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, which is one of the greatest programs ever for Black workers and Black entrepreneurs. I've done so much. And, and I say this, historically, Black colleges and universities were out of money. They were stone cold broke. And I saved them and I gave them long-term financing, and nobody else was doing it. I think it's a very rude introduction. I don't know exactly why you would do something like that. And let me go a step further. I was invited here and I was told my opponent, whether it was Biden or Kamala, I was told my opponent was going to be here. It turned out my opponent isn't here. You invited me under false pretense. And then you said, you can't do it with Zoom. Well, where's Zoom? She's going to do it with Zoom and she's not coming. And then you were half an hour late, just so we understand. I have too much respect for you to be late. They couldn't get their equipment working or something was wrong.
Mr. President, I would love
I think
if
it's
you
a
can answer
very
the question
nasty
on your rhetoric
question.
and why you
I
believe
have
that
answered
Black
the
voters
question.
should trust you with another
I
4
have
years.
been the best president for the Black population since Abraham Lincoln. That's my answer.
Better than President Johnson, who signed the Voting Rights Act?
For you to start off a question and answer period, especially when you're 35 minutes late because you couldn't get your equipment to work in such a hostile manner, I think it's a disgrace.
Let me just ask a follow-up, sir, and then we'll move on to other questions here. Some of your own supporters, including Republicans on...
Yeah, Sharon, a couple of things. My initial reaction, he was hot about that equipment, and he kept taking dig after dig after dig about basically how you poor little Black people can't even get your act together. You invite me here, you're late. He said that a couple of times. Your equipment is trash. He said that multiple times. And to your point about the shadow candidate on the stage, that comment he keeps making about being the best president ever for the Black population and saving HBCUs. We needed not a go to a website and fact check. We needed that in real time on the stage, fact checked in that moment.
Mm-hmm. And you can do that. You can do that. You can do it the old-fashioned way. And now you even have AI. So there's no excuse for this. There's no excuse at all for this. And about the Black jobs and the lying right out the gate about how great he is for Black people. They should have fact checked that in real time too. Okay, he is very bothered about this technical difficulties that they may or may not have. I don't know. I didn't do the reporting. I talked to some people who were there, but you know, Elon Musk had the same problem when he launched a new product. So let's not dump on Black people. The least of the NABJ's problems, okay, is that what he called a 30-minute delay. Again, we have to fact check that. We can't just take his word for it. That's the least, though, if it's true, of their problems. The way this was done, who they picked, who they didn't pick, and the way they've kind of been bobbing and weaving and ducking behind it. And notice how he kept saying, you're right. He demanded that Harris Faulkner be on that stage, and they acquiesced. When the vice president said, oh, Sheila Jackson Lee, a funeral and obligation, she's been the top of the ticket for what, about a week, 9 days? I don't know, Areva, but it's been lightning fast. And you can't accommodate her when she says, I will take questions. We're virtual all the time. Last time I checked, a group called the White Dudes raised $4 million virtually. So in what vacuum? And I really want the names, and I want to know what, broom closet that they huddled up in and thought this was a good idea. This is a catastrophe.
Yeah, it's our favorite word now. It's weird, really, really, really weird. Thank you, Tim Walsh, for the new word for the Republicans. And this disastrous interview, talk about disastrous performances. I don't think we've seen one as bad as this ever, although later in the interview, he says Joe Biden's debate performance was the worst ever in history. He loves hyperbole. When we come forward, we've got to play the clip about Harris turning Black, because I got to ask you, when did you know you were Black? That's the question that's trending on Twitter right now, X right now. When I turned Black, let's take a look at why Black folks all over social media are posting stories of when they knew they were Black.
I just defined it, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a Black woman?
Well, I can say no. I think it's maybe a little bit different. So I've known her a long time indirectly, not directly very much. And she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was Black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn Black, and now she wants to be known as Black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she Black?
She is always identified as a Black woman.
I respect either one. I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't, because she was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn and she became a Black person.
Just to be clear, sir, do you believe that
I think somebody should look into that too when you continue in a very hostile, nasty tone.
It's a direct question, sir. Do you believe?
All right, Sharon, there it is. She happened to turn Black, and someone should look into that. One of the things, I go back to your recommendation about having a shadow candidate or mine, split screen where you're fact checking this. Even when Rachel tried to correct Donald Trump to let him know that Kamala Harris went to HBCU, pledged to Black sorority, blah, 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 he's not going to let you. He talked over her, and you couldn't really hear what she was saying. And obviously, as a journalist interviewing someone, you don't want to get into an argument with the person. And if both people are talking at the same time, nobody can hear either person. So it's not an effective strategy with him, because he's not going to let you have the last word. He's going to push back. He's going to be very aggressive. And that's what we saw in that exchange. And it was just weird. My new word.
Weird. And you know what? I'm a parent. You're a parent. My daughter's 12 and a half, and she may look sweet, but there's an occasion where I'm telling her something directly, and I might get this, womp womp, or, they start doing, and then you're just going to lose your phone. Here we have a grown being, okay? He's been on this planet for decade after decade, and that's exactly what he intended to do. Speak over her and tell a Black woman if she's Black enough or Black at all. I mean, and yes, Black Twitter and everybody's reacting to this. I was looking at one of the white dudes on Twitter who was flabbergasted. The things he was glued to the television watching this. Joy Reid said, imagine a white geezer lecturing a room full of Black journalists about who is and isn't Black. I haven't used the word geezer in a long time, but it's fitting. What is he talking about? He's just talking, actually. He's just talking and being offensive, but again, right to your face, which is why he should not have been in the seat, because he doesn't want to have a serious conversation. He wants to be insulting.
Yeah, let's tee up, Robert, the question of Harris Faulkner. And when when you get that ready, just let me know, because I think that's also important to this conversation. Yeah, Donald Trump has no shame. He has no shame, and we know he has no shame. And he's going to say over and over again, he's the best Black president, or best president for Black people ever since Abraham Lincoln. He just skips right over, Lyndon B. Johnson, anybody else. It's just him. That's it. He's going to say he saved HBCUs with, $500,000 that was pledged. He's going to skip over the $16 billion pledge by the Biden administration. None of those facts matter to him. He has some talking points. He's just going to repeat them over and over again. And he has no shame with saying that to a room of Black voters, because he knows the Black people that support him, like Tim Scott, right?
Yeah.
Byron Donalds afforded. They don't care what he says about Black people. They are all in for the power and the prestige of being in the Republican Party. So he could say Black people are the most despicable people on the planet, and Tim Scott would try to tell us how we didn't hear that, how he didn't mean that, and how Joe Biden has said the same thing. So how dare you attack Donald Trump? So he's not talking to us, really. He's just there so he can check the box with white folks to say he went to that convention. He did talk to Black people. He found one Black person in the audience that he appeared to be getting some kind of love from. He acknowledged that person. Yes,
he brought
it doesn't matter to
Can
him,
I
right?
pay for your lunch is probably what happened there. I mean, that's just my guess, my opinion. Let's not come after the network.
Probably some Black journalists in that room who support Donald Trump. And there are already rumors about, again, what the conditions and terms were for him to be there. Really unfortunate. And I hope the president and the board of the NABJ learned something, that this is a teachable moment for them about normalizing Donald Trump and giving him this kind of platform. Rachel is getting a lot of love online for trying her best, but at the end of the day, you can't win. As you said, you can't do a winning interview with a guy that's willing to be just so in your face about his lies and his deception. But essentially, Harris Faulkner from Fox News is running down everything that is wrong with the economy and everything that's bad about the economy in her eyes and in the eyes of her Fox viewers. It was as if she was reading the standard Fox News talking points as a way of setting him up to answer, to make himself look good, to berate, and to continue to, malign the Harris and Biden administration, Biden-Harris administration. So again, I'm still trying to make sense, Sharon, of why this happened. And
listen, it doesn't make any sense. And here's the thing, Areva, remember when they dropped this bomb, this was not something that, was widely known, I guess, outside of that broom closet, that they were going to be doing this panel with Donald Trump. They waited to the last possible moment. Okay, if you want to surprise Black journalists, then I guess you can tell them Meg the Stallion at the last moment. Yeah, okay, that's cool. This, I don't know why you were hiding it, and that's what it felt like. And remember what we were told after the bomb dropped. They said things like, he's running for president. We've got to ask him the tough questions, and we've got to get the answers. That's not what you did at all. And if you allow someone to come and lie, you mentioned, and I've been on the panel with you where you talked about, again, the HBCUs. If a tree falls in the woods and nobody hears it, right? He just keeps saying the same thing. So his word, whoever speaks the loudest, whoever says the same thing over and over again, it's spreading. That's why you can't give him this platform. And I just really wondered the whole time, here you are, a lawyer. And I love to mention that because I think I secretly always wanted to be a lawyer, maybe loudly. I don't know how you would handle someone like this on the stand. How do you handle someone like this? Or I guess the judge helps tag team them. What do you do?
Yeah, you would be objecting. You would be cutting him off. The judge would be giving that admonishment. If you don't answer the questions that are posed, I am going to strike all of your testimony. This happened. You don't have to imagine this. Wow. This happened during the trials, particularly that $450 million trial involving Letitia James's, that fraud, civil fraud trial brought by Letitia James. He was so belligerent, so undisciplined in his responses. The judge would tell him, if you don't answer the questions, I'm going to strike all of your responses and I am going to hold you in contempt. And you have to be that tough, punish, threaten the man with jail, which is what contempt proceedings can lead to get him to be disciplined. But boy, did we need that side-by-side window. So when he makes those statements about being the best president, about HBCUs, about the best economy, jobs for Black people, he made a statement about, employment. You're right. People are going to take away from that these are facts, and they're not facts. These are only made up talking points in Donald Trump's head. They are not accurate facts. And if you don't have that side-by-side screen with the actual facts, you've just given him more real estate to tell more lies. And we're going to try one more time to tee up the interview question posed by Harris Faulkner of Fox News posed to Donald Trump during that disastrously weird interview that took place at NABJ this afternoon. Let's see if we can hear what Harris Faulkner had to say to Donald Trump.
On is how divided we are as a country. And as you were coming today, we really got to see that we were divided along the lines of race, along the lines of gender. And there is this question of, in this moment where we are, why come here? What is your message today?
My message is to stop people from invading our country that are taking, frankly, a lot of problems with it. But one of the big problems, and a lot of the journalists in this room I know and I have great respect for, a lot of the journalists in this room are Black. I will tell you that coming from the border are millions and millions of people that happen to be taking Black jobs. You had the best.
What exactly is a Black job, sir?
A Black job is anybody that has a job. That's what it is. Anybody that has a job.
All right.
And
Mr.
they're taking the employment away from Black people. They're coming in, they're invading. It's an invasion of millions of people, probably 15, 16, 17 million people. I have a feeling it's much more than that. And everybody's been seeing what's happened. The first group of people, the Black population, is affected most by that. And Kamala is allowing it to happen.
All right. That's one of the softball questions that Harris Faulkner threw to Donald Trump that allowed him to open up the floodgates on his false claims about immigration and about folks crossing the border, taking, quote unquote, the Black jobs. What do you make of that question and that response, Sharon?
It was very dramatic and full of falsehoods in and of itself, because she was seeking to pull that out of him. And I just think, who else was unbothered there is Harris Faulkner. She was not nervous, calm, cool, collected in front of, I guess we'll call them her peers, a fellow Black, I'll put hers in quotes, journalists. And she just wanted to play ball. I wouldn't be surprised if the producers gave her, and I mean the Fox producers, these questions that were obviously cleared with the Trump people and that campaign. And that's what they did. And by the way, he doesn't even really love her. She's just the one Black. He's always asking, where are my Blacks? She's the one Black that could have fit the bill to show up here at Fox News. So she allowed herself to be used, and I was frankly disgusted by it. There's a Black journalist in the room. What are you talking about? It's called the National Association.
I think he forgot that he was at the National Association.
He did, because that's what narcissists do, Areva. That's what narcissists do. It's all about them, okay? It's all about them. He wanted to focus on the equipment that he said failed. And then he'll get to the Blacks.
No, you're right. He lifted her up, and we know he's no fan of hers, but he lifted her up in contrast to putting Rachel Scott from ABC down. He spent a lot of the interview trying to berate and denigrate Rachel because he's angry with ABC, or angry with George Stephanopoulos, just angry with anyone that doesn't do exactly as he says. So he took the time to, compliment Harris and to talk about what a great journalist she was.
So petty.
To respond to that softball question with that invasion that these people, and he went on to say that they being these countries South American countries are opening their jails, their mental health institutions, their mental hospitals, and sending over, we've heard it before, right? The rapists, the gang members, the people with mental health issues. And he thinks that plays well to Black people by somehow trying to pit immigrants who are coming into this country against Blacks and saying they're taking your Black job. And he's been told, Sharon, that phrase Black job is in and of itself racist. He doesn't care. He keeps using it. And when asked, clip, what is a Black job? He says, what is it? All jobs? Now, he does not think his job is the Black job.
Apparently not. Apparently not qualified for that job. Okay. It's problematic. And the fact I felt like, and again, we're watching virtually, but I felt like the audience, who I guess many of them have Black jobs, were either comported themselves and were very controlled for the most part. Sometimes you got to gasp at some of the stuff he says. But the other thing is that they were flabbergasted. Okay. And so that kind of, was he really going to come here and say it like this? I mean, there was a question for some. There's a question still for some. And I just don't understand it. I don't understand
That's who he is. And Trump's not going to bow down. He's not going to cower. He's not going to ever back down. Let's talk about the ending real quickly. So Rachel obviously was the lead journalist on this panel. She opened with the question. She was kind of dictating the show. And I'm imagining in her ear, she gets a message. He's got to go. Because there wasn't a formal ending where you would say, okay, thank you, Mr. President. Do you have any final words? Or there's one final question we want to add. The typical way that you end a interview. That didn't happen. Just very abruptly, she says, okay, it's over. We've got to go.
They went after me as a political opponent. Our country before. And it sets a terrible, terrible precedent.
What do you do on day one if you win? What's your first thing?
What do? I close the border. And I do two things, because I can do a lot of things simultaneously. I close the border. But, we have more liquid gold, gasoline, oil under our feet than any other country. More than Saudi Arabia, more than Russia, more than any other country. I want to use it. I want to use what we have. I want to bring down prices, bring down costs, and I also have to stop the invasion. And remember, they're taking your jobs. These people coming in are taking your jobs.
Project 2025.
I think we have to leave it there by the Trump team.
All right.
So leave it. That is the last word. Thank you so much, Mr. Trump, for coming today and joining us.
Well, thank you very much.
They've been telling us.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, very much. Great.
So they were going to try to get into Project 2025. And Rachel said, I think we have to leave it there. I think we have to leave it there by the Trump team. So you and I know what that means. That means someone was in her ear saying Trump's team is saying he must go. Make that the last question. He has to go right now.
And you know what you do? And I'm sure you know this from your days in the courtroom. When somebody's not playing by the rules, you've got to pivot and figure out what you can get away with to protect the truth. So I've had people in my ear like that. It's too important. So I don't hear you. The earpiece went out suddenly, and we're going to ask the question. The other thing is, who's the candidate? Who's at the top of the ticket? If that's Sharon Reed who's sitting there, or Areva Martin, I want to answer this. This is important. 2025 is what everybody's talking about, and he claims he has nothing to do with. I want to answer that. Instead, like a little puppy dog, he was led off the stage instead of answering the question.
Sharon, I'm sure he told his team, when the clock strikes this, get me out of here.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. That's exactly what went down there.
I just got a statement from Black Enterprise. CEO Earl Butch Graves Jr. denounces the decision to host Trump. And part of it is, he said, the invitation did not include any Black media. None of the Black media organizations were offered the opportunity to interview any candidate. He said that was an insult. And it's insulting, he said, for NABJ to do that. So he disagrees vehemently with their decision to even have them. to have Trump there. I think the backlash, Sharon, is going to continue. I don't know the president, the current president of the NABJ, but boy, he's got a lot of explaining to do. And you do not want your organization to lose its credibility fooling around with someone like Donald Trump. There is no win for this organization to have done this interview. And when you have some of your, prominent Black organizations like Black Enterprise coming out, with these kinds of statements,